So let's get you ready.
Yep.
All right. Welcome to the Herfador Lounge. I'm Ray True Life. Today, I have the pleasure of being here in this amazing distillery. This distillery is elevating the distillery experience. You know, if you ever been to a distillery, you understand a distillery experience. They're doing a lot more than that. Right here in Houston, Texas, William Price Distilling is building complete and new experiences in the way distilleries can be enjoyed. They're creating not only great whiskey, but other offerings as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The founders have a great story, and I have the esteemed pleasure with talking with one half of the founding members, co-founder and vice president, Mr. Zachary Hiller. How you doing today, Zach?
Doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm gonna shake your hand.
Yeah.
You're sitting here. It was a little awkward. I'm gonna shake your hand.
Cool.
So, man. So first of all, how long have you been in the whiskey brewing business?
So, officially, we have been open as a distillery since December of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We signed the lease here and took over the property in February of 20. We all know what happened in March.
Right.
So what was supposed to be a 2-3 month construction project turned into almost a whole year.
Wow.
In that little interim, we decided to make some hand sanitizer with some help from the other distilleries around town. Hired a bunch of furloughed hospitality workers, bars, restaurants, hotels, whatnot, that were all closed down. So we had a rotating cast of about 100 people that were coming in and out for that first year. And then we finally got our distilling permits. Sorry, we had them before. We finally got some other permits, and we're like, oh, still some whiskey. So we got some whiskey. We had that first release in December of 2020. The bar that we're in now didn't open until March of 21.
Okay.
So it's been a dream for a lot longer than that. But how long have we officially been open? Depends on where we start counting, but 2-3 years.
2-3 years? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we gonna. I did a little digging. So we're gonna get into a little bit
Okay.
of that,
All
bit of that backstory. So next question is, talk about what it was that intrigued you to the point of starting a distillery.
So there's a couple different episodes we can talk about for this. For me, it really started when I got involved with a couple breweries. I've always liked beer, but Brian and I were college roommates, and we're both pretty big guys. And you know how it is in college; you're drinking, not always responsibly.
Right.
And it's hard to do that for a big guy with beer. So we were drinking a lot of whiskey, and we weren't just drinking the bottom shelf cheapest thing. We were going out there. We were buying, what we thought was higher end whiskey. And so that's really where it started for me. For Brian, it even goes back further than that. He tells this story about how when he was just a kid, he went to Scotland with his parents, and he has vivid memories of his parents holding him over the fermenters.
Wow.
In various distilleries in Scotland as a kid.
This is what you're gonna do.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously that wasn't in his future then, but when fast forward back to when I got involved with those breweries, Brian left his job in Africa doing oil and gas project management and went back to go get an MBA. I was like, well, when they make you write a business plan, do it about a distillery. I'm interested in what it would take.
Right.
And that was really the beginning of the end for us. So.
Just they're gonna make you write one.
Yeah.
So when they do, make it about a distillery. Well, let's see something here.
Exactly.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
So you say you were college roommates. So talk a little bit. You and Brian, were college roommates. Who is Brian? Who is the other half?
Yeah. So Brian Clare is my other half. Here we met at WashU in St. Louis, actually on the rugby pitch. So a lot of the stuff you'll see around here has a lot of rugby influence in it, including our label. This griffin on the label is a play off of our college rugby mascot that we drew when we were in college. Our friends drew when we were in college, and they let us use it. We just took the rugby ball out and put a whiskey barrel in.
Right.
And we keep talking about changing it.
Why?
Well, because it was. I mean, it was a mistake. Like, I mean, not a mistake. It wasn't intended to be our branding.
Right.
Again, we're starting in the pandemic. It's like, okay, well, we need to sell some whiskey. Well, what are we going to put on the label? Well, what's us? Like who are? Okay, well, rugby, right?
Right.
Because it's been such a core part of our identity for so long. So we put it on here, and I like it. Just little plays. The whiskey guy has a barrel. The vodka guy's holding a potato because it's a potato vodka. Our limoncello, they're holding a lemon.
You can't change that.
So it's a cool little thing that we got going on in there. But yeah, so we met in college on the rugby pitch. We lived together for a couple of years in college. I went on to law school. He did oil and gas stuff in Africa for a couple of years. Like I said, he already came back. He came back, got an MBA, and mum's the word.
And they told him to write a business plan, and you said make it about a distillery, and he did that, and now we're in a distillery.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Full circle. It always comes back, right?
So a lot of businesses, when friends go into business, a lot of times it doesn't work. It doesn't last. So talk about how you and Brian navigate the friendship and business environment. We are like an old married couple. That says it all.
We've been through some ups and downs. Obviously we both hope and dream that this business will be around for a very long time and be very successful. But it hasn't been easy, obviously not.
Right.
It's hard starting a business, especially in the climate that we did.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen each other at our worst. There's probably very little that we could do unintentionally.
Yeah. I mean, college roommates drinking a lot of whiskey. You've seen
that,
a lot.
that would cause a divorce at this point.
Right.
I think, but having that bond and going through and really knowing each other at the courses. I mean, we fight all the time. America, I mean it.
Right.
And sometimes Claire, our office manager, she kind of looks at us funny. It's like, are y'all okay? And it's like, yeah, we're fine. It's over. We had it. We disagreed.
Right.
We had a fight.
Right.
We decided what we were going to do, and we moved on with our lives.
Some whiskey,
right?
and we're moving on.
What's next? Right? So it works. So
yeah, man. That is great that friends can navigate the ups and downs of business and remain friends and business partners. You see it so many times, even in like musical groups and boy bands, they break up and everything because of little stuff. But when you guys go through your things and it's over, once it's said and it's done. That's amazing to see.
Yeah, we and especially like the way we opened, and just how long it took and how much more money it cost. Like, we find ourselves lucky and blessed that pandemic didn't happen 6 months later.
Yeah.
Because if it had happened after we started construction and after I had pulled money from my SBA loan without the ability to create income to pay that loan back, which guess what? That first dollar I took, they wanted their money back already.
Yeah.
We would have been done before it started.
Yeah.
So as hard as
sitting here with a distillery that you can't do anything with.
Exactly.
That's terrible.
So,
but y'all made it through that time.
Yeah, and we're here. You know,
we're sitting here.
Well,
yeah.
So
making amazing drinks. And
yeah, thank you.
So we've been talking about all this backstory. Let's talk a little bit about William Price Distillery.
Yeah.
We're going to get into the question that I know you think I'm about to ask, but that's coming next. Right now, I see that you guys offer more than just whiskey. So tell me about the different products that you offer.
Yeah. So whiskey, that's obviously why we got in this business. Right now, we mostly have rye whiskeys. Our flagship product is our 101. It's a blend of 2 different mash bill ryes, a 45 rye and a 95 rye. We blend it to taste. We also have a cask strength, same base mash bills, but we leave it at cask strength. So we are looking at a slightly spicier, more rye than bourbon type of profile in the 101. We really lean on the 55 rye to make a sweeter offering. The cask strength that we have out right now is actually my favorite. If I were to blind taste test you on the 2, you would. I mean, I'm gonna spoiler alert. You would probably guess that the cask is the 101 because it's as smooth as it is. We also do a lot of finishing with our whiskeys. When we are evaluating our barrels, if it doesn't get earmarked for 101 or cask or a single barrel, we'll put it into our experimental finishing series. And so we'll put stuff in, in just different types of wood. We have some French oak, we have some European oak, we have some sherry barrels back there. We have some single malt as well that, and we'll just kind of mix and match everything, see what happens. Are they all winners? No. Some of them are really good. The rye finish and sherry that we have right now is one of my favorites. It always shows up when I do guided tastings. Well, because it really shows the difference. Like I can really use it in that experience to show the difference between our cask and what happens when you finish a whiskey for even just a short period of time, and how the wood plays with the whiskey. So that's really fun to me. I love that experimental stuff. Outside of whiskey, our coffee liqueur is the jam. It's by far our best seller. It exists because my wife was tired of me going to the store just to buy coffee liqueur to make White Russians at home after we open.
Why don't you just make it?
That's exactly what she said. Why don't you just make one? You own a distillery. Okay. And so we have a great partnership with Katz Coffee, also local to Houston. I'm not sure if you know about them. They're a great partner with us. Maybe just a mile or 2 away from here off 290. Okay. But we get all our beans locally roasted from them. They come in here. We turn GNS into the coffee liqueur. It's real smooth, just like it is. Great in White Russians, great in espresso martinis. That's really what's pushing it right now. Which then also goes with our third biggest product, which is our potato vodka. We are not vodka people.
Yeah, I get that.
We have the vodka because I have a bar and I need to have vodka at a bar. That being said, we opted to go with the potato vodka over generic corn vodka because it's a little bit smoother, has a more pleasant mouthfeel to it. It's not quite as sharp as a corn vodka might be. And then that with the espresso martini, pump a little more coffee in there, boom, espresso martini. The coffee liqueur. And then we get the espresso martini. So these 3 products are really what's pulling us along right now. We also have 2 gins. They were developed by a woman named Tony Hardesty, who came to us during the pandemic. She's a PhD chemist from London. Wow. She was our head distiller for a time. But she spent a lot of time researching those in our Navy strength gin. Won a gold medal in San Francisco last year.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you. That was a big get for us. And then we also do weird stuff like we have a limoncello. We have an Amaro that was made.
Before we go on that,
sure.
I asked earlier about this limoncello, and
sure.
I need you to talk about your volunteer work.
So for those of you listening at home, a limoncello is a very standard digestivo. It's a liqueur. It's an Italian liqueur meant to be drunk after a meal.
Okay.
Or as a palate cleanser in the middle of the meal. It is 3 ingredients, maybe 4. It's GNS, which is your high proof vodka, water, lemon peels, and simple syrup. That's all that goes in it, right? And but it takes so many lemons that even if I wanted to pay my staff to do it, it would take us a year to peel all the lemons.
Right.
So instead, hey, come on in, guys. So instead, we bring in the neighborhood. We have a couple volunteer shifts, probably 30, 40 people at a time. They'll come in and we'll just peel lemons for 3 hours. And, there's plenty of pizza and cocktails to be had.
So your name is Zach.
Yes.
Your partner's name is Brian.
Yes.
The name of the distillery is William Price Distilling.
Yes.
Neither one of you are named William.
That is true.
So let's talk about where that name comes from.
So William Price Clary is Brian's 4th great grandfather.
Oh, wow.
First of our ancestors to move to Texas.
Wow.
That is why we picked him. We then did research on the man. We picked him because we wanted to honor, our ancestors, where we've come before.
Right.
We didn't put his face on the bottle because as much as this is about who we are trying to do our own.
Right.
So we want to make our own legacy, and plus, go walk in the liquor store. There's 100 bottles with 10,000 old
with an old guy on it.
Right?
Just looking at the
and I know you can't see this over there, but that's the only picture of Bill that we have.
That would look like just about everybody.
Yeah, just about everybody.
About all the rest.
And we think that picture is from after he died. There are no pictures that we can find of Bill Price alive. We think that was the picture that the medical examiner took after he passed.
Wow.
Yeah, we think.
With the hat on?
With the hat on. They used to get all dressed up for that picture. Anyways, so before Bill moved to Texas, he lived in a town called New Salem, Illinois, where he operated a grocery store, which is just what they called a bar at the time. All he sold was booze.
Sounds like my favorite, my perfect grocery store.
No, it was great. It was great. So all he sold was booze. As legend has it, a gentleman named Denton Offutt operated and owned the general store next door in New Salem. And once upon a time, he had this store clerk, a tall, young, strapping young man, really good wrestler. And Mr. Offutt comes up to Bill and goes, "Hey, Bill, I bet you $10. And my new store clerk can't beat your cousin, Jack Armstrong, in a wrestling match." And being a degenerate gambler, Bill, of course, obliged. The whole town came out. It was a big to-do. Jack Armstrong's about to lose when the rest of the Clarys jump in the fight. They cheated. For fear of their lives, Mr. Offutt and that store clerk called it a draw.
Yeah. Well, if the family jumps in, you're definitely going to call that a draw.
Call it a draw. It turns out that store clerk was Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have learned a lot about Bill because he was history adjacent. His association with Abraham Lincoln he's in a lot of books. If you look over here on the wall, that's actually a depiction of the fight of the wrestling match. They have also rebuilt New Salem, Illinois, as kind of like a historical town. They, people all dress up, pretend like they're from the oldie times of Lincoln, in homage to Lincoln, including Clary's grocery store. And so that last picture on the wall is actually Brian in front of the rebuilt Clary's grocery store in New Salem, Illinois. So, Bill would go on and serve in the military under Abe. Abe and Lincoln and Jack Armstrong, the other gentleman from the wrestling match, would become lifelong friends. And I can't remember if it was before or after Jack passed away, but ultimately his kid would be put on trial for capital murder. And Abraham Lincoln defended him. And for those historians out there, this was the trial that he used the Farmer's Almanac to get the kid off of a murder trial, where the star witness said something like, "Oh yeah, I knew it was him." And Lincoln said, "Well, how did you know?" He's like, "Well, it was clear as day with the full moon's light," or something
right
that. And so Lincoln
sounds just like back then,
right? And so Lincoln opens up the Farmer's Almanac, no moon.
Wow.
So the witness was obviously a liar, acquitted of murder. We all live happily ever after.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's William Price Clary.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah.
What a story. Wow. I had no idea when I asked the question. No idea. I want to talk a little bit about the distillery itself. So you offer venue rentals and some interesting hands-on experience I saw. So talk a little bit about the different type of things you offer outside of whiskey.
Sure. So as far as experiences go, we love renting out this place. It's a cool backdrop for any event, birthday party, weddings, rehearsal dinners. As an aside, I do happen to be an ordained minister. I have married people before. If you want to have a wedding here, I know a guy who can make it happen. If you don't have a friend or someone you want to.
Earlier you said you wear many hats.
I do.
You wear very many hats.
I wear all the hats. I wear all the hats. Anyways, yeah, so private events are great here. A number of different things. We can tear off any of the rooms. We're going to put some more money into upgrading the back a little bit more as well. We also just have experiences that we can do, whether it's a guided tasting, where it's typically Brian or myself. Sometimes one of the bartenders will sit down with 4 different expressions and kind of walk through the whiskey making process and how doing little things to the whiskey can drastically change its flavor profile. My favorite flight right now that I like to do is our 101, followed by the cast strength, which shows what happens with the water, followed by a rye finished in sherry, which shows how quickly we can change the flavor of the whiskey with a finishing barrel. And then I usually finish it off with the chilled coffee liqueur shot, just to kind of reset everything. So we can come back to the bar and drink some more. So I really like doing those guided tastings. We also have cocktail classes where our bartenders will come out from behind the bar and teach you how to make our cocktails. And it's not necessarily really about learning our cocktails, but how to make a drink, like the theory of cocktail making. Well, here, when you're building a cocktail, these are kind of the ratios. Wow. Here's some basic bar techniques, so that then you can then go home and replicate and show off for all your friends.
So you guys have bartenders, not people that mix drinks.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah. I mean,
or mixologists.
Well, see, my hat is some dude behind the bar making drinks. I got lucky.
Right.
David here
is a bartender.
He's a bartender. He's a mixologist. He can make things sing better.
Long as he ain't flipping stuff.
Right.
Mixology. I can't imagine sitting behind the bar and it's like, yeah, make me and he goes to flipping and throwing. Just make the drink.
He speaks in the glass.
Right. And this is he's speaking.
So those are our main offerings. We also do cool stuff for bars and restaurants. We'll do single barrel picks. We'll make custom coffee liqueurs for them. So if there's a restaurant that has a very strong coffee program already, they don't necessarily need to use this. We can very simply switch out the beans for the roast that they're using, so that now their coffee cocktails taste like their coffee.
Wow.
And that's really fun. That was my today's production hat was actually making finishing off 4 different bench samples for 4 different restaurants with their coffee. And then sometime at the end of next week, they'll be ready they got to mellow for a little bit. So sometime at the end of next week, we'll actually taste them and we'll bring them over and we'll decide if we're going to move forward with the project or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how much you actually drink in a day.
Not as much as you'd think.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, with all of the tasting.
Well,
I couldn't own a distillery. I'll tell you that right now.
There was a time where, we thought, it's all still fun, or I wouldn't be doing it. We start by that.
Right.
But there was a time where doing the tastings was fun and not work. Right. But, and I can tell you the day it changed for me mentally. I got here 9 a.m. I was running a little late. Everyone else had started their day. And I got to my desk and there were 8 glasses of vodka. And they're like, we need you to break a tie.
Huh.
And so I tasted all 8 of those vodkas.
First thing.
I swallowed, I had made myself some coffee.
Yeah.
I had a cup at home. I had breakfast at home. My computer was not on yet.
Wow.
And I broke some ties. And, now when we're evaluating whiskey, it's really about drinking as little as possible to get the thing done. Because also, if I have 100 barrels to run through, you can't taste 100 barrels in a sitting.
Right.
You're lucky if you can get through 12.
Right.
More likely, 6 to 8 before your palate's just shot.
Exactly.
So it's really about drinking just enough to do the evaluation to move on. And then always with the spit cup. I'll get to the finish when I get to the finish, but if I got to go back in to revisit the taste, I don't swallow if I don't have to.
But I mean, it's the whiskey making process is amazing to me. As somebody who's, I want to say, not super recent, but recently getting into more what's the word? I'm not gonna say craft because it's not really craft, but not the commercial whiskeys. Okay. Getting into more of the people who put more love, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would call it craft. I mean, it's so we're as an industry, we're behind beer. We're a couple years behind beer for sure. There aren't that many distilleries in Texas relative to other parts of the world, but we're growing. There are a lot more now than there were when we started. I think when we applied for our permits, there were probably just over 100 in the state.
Wow.
Most of them, over half of them in the Austin, San Antonio, Hill Country area.
I can see that.
At that point, I want to say there were 7 or 8 in Houston or the Houston area. And I'm talking, if you went from, sorry about that. If you went from the Woodlands all the way down to Galveston to Katy and Beaumont, we'll call that Houston.
And all of its encompassing cities.
8. Right. Now there's probably about a dozen of us. And I'm just talking distilling permits, not necessarily all making whiskey. So it's growing. We're there, but we're all craft, and we all work together. A rising tide raises all ships. Every inch that they get, makes it easier for me. Right.
And every inch that you get makes it easier for them because people will start looking for craft whiskey.
Sure.
Because you can put more into it. You can do more things.
I'm going to turn this off so it doesn't go again.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
And that's great to me when I can drive to a distillery and say, what you got today?
Yeah.
I need another bottle. I don't have to go to Specs or Total Wine, which is not a problem with that, but I get to talk to the people who make it.
Sure.
I get to build a relationship with the people who make it, and I get to see where they make it, and they get to see the people who drink it.
Sure.
and enjoy it. And every time I talk about it, somebody's like, "What you talking about? William Price Distilling? What's that?" Well, let me tell you. And now somebody comes, "Oh, let me try it out." Because I've got friends who will. They definitely love whiskey. I got a friend who's probably got as much whiskey as you have. It's random whiskey, not random, but different bottles. But he can probably start a bar in his own condo.
Sure,
it's crazy, ridiculous. He has way too many bottles of alcohol. But this place has just about anything you could think of to put into a distillery. I see the outside area, the bar, the distillery. You have the tours. You have the events, the volunteer work of peeling.
Yeah.
Only thing you're missing is a cigar line.
Well, I would if I could. The fire marshal frowns upon open flames in alcohol manufacturing plants.
I figured I'd throw it out there just to see how you react.
I love the we have a very close relationship with our fire inspector. He comes by every so often, as he's supposed to do,
to make sure you're not smoking.
Well, yeah, and among other things, but we've done I feel like we've done a very good job anticipating what he's going. I mean, the code's right there.
Yeah.
Lawyer hat. It's like I can read the code and be like, you're only supposed to have this much stuff on the floor, so,
right?
But he's great. He would no. There's no way he'd let me go with a cigar lounge.
I figured I'd throw it out there. I mean, I do love my cigars.
Yeah, don't we all?
I do it out there, maybe, because if you do, Herfador cigars could be one of your. We can slide in there.
And Brian might kill me for saying this out loud. What's more likely to happen is eventually, God willing, we'll have enough money to open up a second location, which will be either some sort of Rick House adjacent type of place, or maybe we'll move production to for one of the things, like it'll be our gin house or something. Maybe we could attach a cigar lounge to that.
Well, if you do, holler at me. I got we can fill you up with cigars. I know a plethora of people we can fill you up.
Well, let's we'll talk about it when we get there.
Right. Yeah. I just figured I'd try. I'll toss it out there, see what happens. So before we get into the section that I like to call, it's the meaty question. I like to call it the work.
Okay.
Right. Before I get into that section, where can people find William Price Distilling?
So obviously you can come here. We everything we make we have here. A lot of our stuff is in Specs, Total Wine, a bunch of independents all over Texas. We're in New Mexico. Hopefully we'll be opening up other states soon. What order that happens, I don't know yet. You can also ship from us to 41 states. You can just get on our website and you can ship it right to your door. WilliamPriceDistilling.com.
Okay.
And there's a big old ship now button right on top, and it'll take you over to that portal, and you can ship direct to your door.
That's amazing to get your alcohol shipped right to you.
The future's starting to get things right.
Right. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally. We don't need flying cars. We need alcohol. That's what we need. Keep the cars to yourself. Give us self-driving cars. Yes.
Sure.
And more alcohol coming to the door. So talk about some of the sacrifices that you've had to make and the obstacles that you've had to face in pursuit of starting this business.
Well, that's a tough question.
That's why I call it the work.
I can tell you that it's now August of 2023, and Brian and I have still not pulled a salary from here. hopefully soon. We both, Brian had a lot of money saved up from his oil and gas. I am very lucky to have a very loving and supportive wife.
Emphasis on
loving and supporting wife. I'm also an IP attorney. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of intellectual property, startup business type stuff, which has on the one hand saved us a ton of money here, but also I'm able to still bring home money as a lawyer and bring something to the table, as well, through that. And this is all, and that's actually, to go back, is how I got involved with the breweries, that we talked about earlier. Is they needed help with trademarks, and I was a baby attorney and I needed clients.
so let's help each other out.
So I traded some, and they didn't have money and I didn't have experience. So I traded equity for some trademarks as a baby attorney. And that's really how I got in there. And I can actually say that from between that brewery and one other client, I can trace almost all of my client from the tree. From obviously there's other people, but like all referrals from those two people mostly. But yeah, it's back to struggle, sacrifice. It's definitely been both. We have had to make some tough decisions along the way, and what we can spend and how we can spend it to make sure that we're paying our employees and that we're keeping the lights on and whatnot. We are almost actually profitable, really, like on a consistent basis. We'll have months here and there, but it's not easy. It's a grind. Brian, the reason Brian's not here with us right now is he's on the road. He's knocking on doors, shaking hands, kissing babies, peddling bottles and cases at a time to whoever will listen to him.
Doing the work.
Yeah. And then I hold down the fort here.
Right. That's the whole purpose, for this show. Two purposes for me doing the show. One purpose is to get you out there, to help put your business, your brand out there, but also is to help anybody else who's looking to be an entrepreneur. Hey, it's not easy. It's gonna take work.
It's not easy. And look, and if you are listening and starting your own business is something you want to do, hit me up, call me, shoot me an email, info@WMPTX. It'll get to me. I'm happy to talk, share my experiences, tell you what not to do. I can't tell you what to do all the time, but I can tell you what not to do. I can tell you what not to do.
It's a dead end over there. Don't go down that street.
You're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't call. But if you need help, we're an open book. Like we wouldn't have gotten where we are today if that offer hadn't been on the table from some other people. Direct competitors, even. It's how the world goes around.
Right. So this next question, some people never get to this point. Some people do. So my next question is, was there ever a time that you thought about quitting? And what was it that happened to change your mind? Because obviously you didn't quit.
Yeah. There have been a few times where we didn't know where rent was going to come from or payroll was going to come from, and especially very early on. And it would have been easy for all of us to. Well, it would have been easy for us to walk away. It would have been disastrous economically. So it wasn't really an option. Even though a lot of this was funded by an SBA loan, we had a lot of friends and family, come in and invest at the beginning. Brian's family, particularly, his dad put up all the collateral for that loan. and you know, walking away would have meant a lifetime of work for nothing.
Yeah.
So you know, it wasn't an option.
Right.
So but did I think about it? Sure. You know, but
Yeah.
it's wasn't a real option. Had to grind through it.
Yeah, I think any small business or entrepreneur who start any small business or entrepreneur gets to that point where they think, "What am I doing this for? Is it worth it?" You know, and you just got to persevere and push through.
Yeah, look, and I think we've definitely, we still are grinding, but like I said, was looking at the books. I've got a couple months in a row where the numbers are black, and it's just like, yeah, like, yeah,
that's what it is. That's right. What it's all about. Them black numbers.
So now we got some black numbers. So we're talking about new investors again. It's you're 3 years, you're still in the red. Well, why are you in the red? Well, because every time I get money, I spend it on marketing. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like those dollars are needed to grow the business.
Right.
And now it's like, okay, well, now I'm at a point where the spend that I have is less than what I'm finally bringing in. Exactly. And so it's like, okay, so now that we're in the black, where can we put that money? Mm-hmm. Right? Because I got to spend it
to grow.
Right? I got to spend it to grow. Right. So it's like, how can I allocate that money? And stay in the black.
Right.
And stay in the black.
I don't want to allocate the money and now it's back red. I'm staying in the black. So, that's where we need to be, as a business.
And again, it was a grind. It seems like hopefully it's all going to work out though.
Yeah, man. You got an amazing place here. My first time here, but I like it. I'm definitely going to be back.
Sure. Well, happy to have you.
Especially for so fast.
Yeah,
because they're great. But what's been the best part of your journey?
I think meeting the people. Especially in that first year during the pandemic, the relationships that I've built and that we've built from people that I would have never met. Mm-hmm. Those, there you can see their pictures all over the wall. I wouldn't know half of these people if not for this place. Yeah. Can't imagine my life without them now. So the people. It's you don't get into the hospitality business if you're not a people person.
Exactly. Why people keep coming into my bar?
Yeah, it's like, leave me alone. I just the relationships. I like meeting people. I like hearing their stories. Hanging out, having fun.
That's what it's all about. I mean, you have a bar. I see cornhole tables over there. The big Connect Four. You don't have the big Connect Four at cornhole if you don't like people.
Yeah,
those are two people games.
My kid, that Connect Four game actually broke, and my kid, who's almost 5, was not happy with me, so we had to get a new one.
You got to have the big Connect Four. Yeah. You got to have it.
It's a crowd pleaser.
So what are 2 of your most important principles, either in life or business? It doesn't matter. Just 2 of your most important principles.
I think the first one is just you got to have faith in the vision, right? Mm-hmm. You really have to buy in and know what the end game is mm-hmm. before you start, and just. I'm not saying have blinders on and don't pivot and don't see what else is going on and don't adapt and change, but just knowing where you're trying to go and just, have faith that the decisions that you're making are going to point the ship in the right direction.
Right.
Because as soon as you start second guessing yourself, it's over.
Yeah.
That, and then also just taking everything with a grain of salt. Don't take anything personally. It's just business at the end of the day. Not everyone's going to be your friend as much as you want them to be.
Right.
And, just don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Have some thick skin.
No's come in business.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get stuck on, they didn't say it. No. So what? Somebody will say yes. Keep going.
Keep going.
Right? Keep pushing. So you've kind of already done this, but I want to ask again, what advice would you give to anyone who is starting or thinking about starting to get into the world of distilling?
Not really the answer to your question, but call me. Make sure it's something you actually want to do.
Well, that's an answer. Because if you're looking to get into it, make a phone call, reach out on Instagram.
Go visit as many distilleries as you can. Really decide if you want a distillery or if you want a brand or if you want both. Because those are all different things and they're not necessarily mutually exclusive.
Right.
And the only way to figure that out is going to be to go visit and talk to as many people who are doing it. And I'm not saying just go, I mean, you should just walk into a distillery and do the tour and do their experiences, but then you should then go back and tell them you're coming the second time if you don't the first time, and sit down and talk to them.
Yeah.
I would bet that 99% of the people are going to make some time for you. And just make sure that you know what that vision is before you get started.
Yeah, great advice. This next question is very simple, very easy. What's next for William Price Distilling?
What's next for William Price Distilling is we are actually going to start making our own distillate. Yeah. So I'm not sure what we can see on the camera here, but we do have this ginormous still behind us.
Well, we can take a tour if that's fine.
We can go walk. The back is not pretty. It has been 100+ degrees for the last 2 months. So it is not tidy back there because we are not expecting customers. But we can go look at the stuff if you want to, as long as you don't hold that against me. But some friends of ours who wanted to start a distillery, a rum distillery, have had just terrible luck finding a space. They've been shut out of, I want to say, 3 or 4 deals now in the 11th hour for various different reasons, all of which were out of their control. But at the end of the day, they got told 3 times.
Yeah.
They did not get discouraged. They knew that we wanted to get our stills hooked up and they're ready to start distilling. So long story short, they're actually coming in with some capital. I actually, in that clip of the break earlier, went back and handed the guy a check to give to the guy who's going to hook up all the piping for the boiler. Okay. So hopefully, I would say in the next, by the end of the year, we should be laying down barrels finally.
Nice.
Nice. Which is exciting.
It is.
Because that means by the end of the year, in 2 years, I'm taking that whiskey out of the barrel. Hopefully.
And we get to come back to William Price Distilling and drink it.
Yes, we can.
Zach, man, I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Apologize for the mess. Like I said, we are about to hook up the still, so I pulled a lot of stuff out, and it's just kind of living on these tables right now as we're in this state of flux. But generally speaking, of all of this equipment that we have, the only thing that we actually currently use is this little still right here. It's 25 gallons. We convert the GNS into gin on this. A lot of this equipment we got at the beginning of the pandemic through foreclosure before the pandemic from a brewery that closed down. They were selling, they were done with their careers. So we got a lot of stuff from there. The rest of it we sourced. This is the still that we're actually going to hook up. The reason we're hooking up this one instead of the big guy is because the boiler that we got at that foreclosure sale when we bought the brewery came with a boiler that was not big enough for the big still.
Wow.
With the way the market is right now, it's probably going to cost me another $250,000 to get that guy hooked up. Ouch. With the cost of the still, with the cost of the boiler. So I want it up, very much so. Mm-hmm. You got any rich uncles out there?
I don't, but, you know, but we hopefully somebody might. Right? Hey, let's peel off a few.
Right. But this is the guy that we're hooking up. It is a 1,000 liter still, hybrid pot column still. So we'll hook this up. One of the cookers, both of the fermenters. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that'll be up the next 30 to 60 days. And then I actually think we're going to start laying down single malt first.
Ooh.
I think the plan, and this is all subject to change, of course, but I think the plan is going to be to make single malt and then put it in the rye barrels as we're making the next batch of rye.
Huh. That sounds nice.
Yeah. This is custom made for us by Forsyth Stills out of Scotland. It also is a hybrid pot column still. If you do want to get up here and close, you can feel where they actually hammered out the shape for us. It was designed by a gentleman named Michael Delavante, who got his start in the rum world with Appleton Estates. Yeah, like Jamaica.
Wow.
But he helped us design this. Hopefully, God willing, we will get it up and running. This column here on the floor will stand up next to it. It's got 13 plates in it.
What do the plates do?
So each plate is an evaporation cycle. So you'll see this more for marketing in the world of vodka, where you see something that says like 10 times distilled. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean it went through the still 10 times. That means it went through 10 distillation or evaporation cycles, right? So every time it goes through one of those plates, the spirit evaporates, alcohol evaporates at a lower temperature than water. Water gets left behind. A higher proof spirit goes up each level. By having a hybrid pot column still, the theory is that we can avoid doing two separate runs, right? So a lot of times when people just have pot stills, they'll do two runs. They'll get their low lines and then they'll do their spirit run to get the high proof off on the second time. By doing it through a column, we save some production time, and then you'll even see a lot of people that do just continuous column stills.
Wow.
That are just ginormous. And they're called continuous stills because you're not supposed to turn them off because they take so much energy to turn back on. Yeah. So we opted for somewhere in the middle to balance that efficiency with more traditional techniques because we wanted to have the pot. But we also didn't want to spend all week making one batch of whiskey.
That too.
So this first row of whiskey used to be over here in front of all the equipment. This first row is actually our experimental series. You'll see a lot of different types of wood here. These bigger guys at the end are our sherry barrels. We've got some, I think this is French oak. I think one or two of these here are European oak. These have all sorts of stuff in them. Some of them have whiskey, some are rye whiskey, some have single malt, some have coffee liqueur in them. We had gin in one for a while, but behind it in the other rows, and we can come over here and you can get the side view also. This is all of our whiskey that's in storage, I'll call it, for future batches. Brian and myself have tasted all of these barrels.
All of these barrels?
All of these barrels. When they came in, we opened up each barrel. We evaluated them for aroma, taste, finish, sealed them back up, weighed them so we knew how much whiskey we actually had.
How much you actually drank out of it to taste it.
Yep. The TTB requires us to keep track of every drop. So,
right.
We evaluated them all. We put them into a couple different categories. We ranked them all on 1 to 5 for each of those things. Put them in either a 101 cask, single barrel, or other category. That other category doesn't mean it's bad whiskey. It just means we didn't love it as a single barrel and it didn't have the flavor profiles we're looking for in our blends.
Right.
So then those others either just sit and wait, because they will change, or they get nominated for the experimental series.
So let me ask you, what you said earlier, the experimentals that you try in different wood. What happens to the ones that you don't bottle?
I'll bottle everything. It'll stay in there till it's good.
Oh.
That's the beautiful thing about whiskey.
It's gonna age.
Right? So I don't know if this story was on camera or not, but when I was talking about the French oak earlier, the single malt, that was actually another customer that came in earlier before you. So we got a single malt that came in. It was aged in a rum barrel. It was delicious.
Wow.
Right. I wanted to release it like that. It would have been the first thing we released that we didn't manipulate in some way ourselves. At the time, we were really trying not to do that. We still don't really do that, except for some single barrels that come off here and there. But we really wanted to try to make every drop of whiskey that came through here our own, right? And if we're not distilling it, finishing it, batching it is really the only way that we can.
Right.
So anyways, this single malt, it was delicious. It should have been put in a bottle, but I got outvoted. It's fine. Again, got to have thick skin, move on. I got told no, I moved on with my life, right?
Yeah.
Until 6 months later when we opened that barrel back up, and it was disgusting.
See?
Terrible.
See?
Awful. And they're like, well, let's just pour it down the drain. And go, we're going to close that barrel, and we're going to wait 6 more months.
You see what happens.
And see what happens. And 6 months later, it was tolerable. I was like, okay, we're going to wait 3 more months.
Right.
All right, we're going to wait 2 more months. We're going to wait 2 more months, 1 more month. Okay, now, bottle now.
Yeah.
Right? So you just got to go back in. You got to have patience. That would be the third piece of advice for anyone that wants to do this. You got to have patience.
It seems as though you must, whiskey and wine, you have to have patience.
You can't have a 4-year-old whiskey unless you made it 4 years ago.
Unless you made it 4 years ago. That's why I couldn't have a distillery. I wouldn't make it to 4 years to get it. I'd be drinking the clear whiskey.
Well,
tastes good enough to me.
Right. So,
here's a question: what y'all do with the used barrels?
So it depends. A lot of times we'll sell them off. A lot of breweries like to have them.
I need a whiskey barrel table.
We use them for furniture a lot also. But yeah, man, next time we dump them, if I can't refill it with something myself, I can tear you one off.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. Yeah. Zach, man, again, I appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure.
The tour.
Yeah.
Appreciate the tour. I know you've got things to do. Thank you very much for joining me and allowing me to come and tour your facility and sit and spend some time and talk with you.
Sure. No, it's great to talk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Man. Thank you.
No, thank you.